can you compare and contrast work style that you faced in India versus Japan?
That was a big culture shift for me.
Is there anything specifically that's like different between India and Japan in terms of your day-to-day work?
One big realization that I had after coming here is that it all comes down to what you bring to the table.
Are you doing any overtime?
The best work comes out of people when they are being themselves.
Being an engineer, I was constantly reminded that you are a woman. In Japan, I'm reminded that I'm an engineer. In India, you're a woman engineer. In Japan, you're an engineer.
So, my intention with that tweet was
Welcome. I am Eric from JapanDev.com, and today we have Nandini with us. I'm super excited to talk to you because you have recently made the move from being a software engineer back in India to Japan, and I'm super excited to learn more about kind of your background and your experiences here in Japan, see how it's going, and kind of dig into your life in Japan. So, thank you so much for joining.
it's lovely to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we've gotten to know each other a bit over the past few months, and I think your story is like super interesting, actually. So I'm super excited to be able to kind of tell people more about how you did it, because I think you are a really good success story for how to move to Japan, work as a software engineer at a good company, and basically live the dream in Tokyo. So, yeah, I mean, I think just to start off, let's talk a little bit about kind of your background. You, like I said, started out in India. You worked a little bit, for a couple of years as a software engineer there, and then you decided to pick up your life, move to Tokyo, and I'm just curious, how did you make that transition happen?
So, before getting into anything, I would like to say that this is not just me. Japan Dev has helped a lot of people. Funny story, I have a team member who said that they found a job through Japan Dev 2 years ago.
Really?
So, there you go. You're everywhere. Because I kind of
Awesome.
flex now that I know founders of Japan Dev and they like hold me and they're like, if you know them, go and thank them from my side. Like, okay, I'll do that.
Thank you. I'm
Uh,
glad. I'm really glad to hear that because,
See, small world, right?
yes.
I would like to start off with how I met you
Okay.
because let's share how I met Eric in Japan.
This is a
It
great story. Yeah.
it was just my second day here,
Okay.
and when somebody opens Japan Dev, it's designed so well that you scroll the whole way. You just are forced to scroll the whole way. It's such a good design. And
Thank you.
in the end, you get to know the founders of the company, which is you and your wife. So I just get to know who the founders of Japan Dev are as soon as I like am on the website. So when I came here, I'm like, I have to meet these people because I have to tell them uh, that I came here because of them.
Uh,
So it was my second day here, and I was on X, and I saw your post on X that you're going to be speaking at this event, and the event was nearby, and luckily I was able to reach there on time. The reason why I was so excited to meet you was because I read your stories and I've seen your podcasts where you discuss your whole journey of how difficult it was for you to even get a foot in the doors of Japanese companies. And I'm literally your product's success story. So for you, you had to learn Japanese and then you really had to hustle to get a visa and then you really crossed so many rivers to get a job in tech in Japan. Let me show you how it looked like for me,
okay.
how I got a tech job in Japan. I'm just sitting in India, I'm doing my software engineer job, I'm working in tech, liking my work, and then I go to X, I click on Japan Dev. And then I go on Japan Dev, I click on apply. And with a little bit of potential, I'm here. So for
Okay.
me, getting a tech job in Japan was just 2 clicks away, and I think that's a
Wow.
testament of hard work.
Thank you. So you heard it here first. You want a tech job in Japan, go to japandev.com. 2 clicks. That's all you have to do. Nothing else, right? I'm sure that you didn't put in any other effort at all whatsoever in terms of the interview process and getting the degree in the first place and, working, getting the experience. I think I am very, grateful, of course, and I'm really glad that the site was helpful. But I think there was probably some other things that went into that, I suspect.
Yeah, we'll get into
Yeah.
that. But since tech is so global now, those set of skills will be applied everywhere you go. But
Hmm.
Japan is a difficult country to enter. And to solve that problem, I think you've been really working hard to solve that problem for so many years now. I'm so grateful that I can say that it was just 2 clicks away for me.
Yeah. Well, thank you for saying that. I think it can be difficult to, I mean, sometimes you can get kind of bogged down in the day to day of running the business. So for me to meet someone like you who's, used the site and been able to move to Japan, thanks to it, it's obviously super rewarding. And it reminds me of like why I'm working hard, day by day. And, you know, that it's worth it, right? So I really appreciate that, and I think it is also really interesting to show kind of who you are actually by talking a little bit more about how we met the first
Yeah, let's
time.
go back to that story. Sure. So,
Yes, let's go back to that because, and by the way, there was a typhoon at that point. Let's set the stage a little bit. It was in
then,
Tokyo. There was a typhoon bearing down on the city, and we decided to go through with this event, right? And maybe you can tell the rest of how we actually ended up meeting for the first time.
so I was at this event, and there were like 6 to 7 people there, and a host and you. And so we were at Court Chrysalis. Can we take the name?
Yeah,
Sure. Okay. We were at Court Chrysalis, and shout out to the founder of Court Chrysalis. She's a woman in tech. I love that.
that's true. Co-founder, and then the other founder is Connie, the guy that I was having a chat with. Um,
Oh, okay. Nice, nice.
yep,
So
yep.
yeah, there I was with other Japanese people, and you turned around and you asked me, "So what are you doing here?" I'm like, "I'm a software engineer here." You're like, "How?" I'm like, "Because of you." Can you speak any Japanese? This session
Yeah,
is in Japanese. I'm like, "No, but I'm
yeah.
willing to sit through it because I want to talk to you."
Right. Well. So first of all, actually, I think the first time that we ever really came into contact was online on Twitter, X, if you will, and because I had posted about the event, and then you responded to it, and were like, "Oh, this looks cool. I want to go." But then I guess you realized, like, "Oh, wait, the discussion's in Japanese," and you kind of posted about that, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, I guess probably it's not going to work out for her, unfortunately." But then I saw you at the event, and I was like, "Wait, you're here? Like, you came anyway?" Even though you knew there was going to be this 60-minute chat in Japanese, and you politely sat through it, you know what I mean? And just, for the chance to like meet me and talk to me, that was incredibly flattering, of course. And it just really made me think like, yeah, of course, she's one of the ones who moved here and like was able to get a tech job. I think you downplay it a lot and just saying, oh, you had the 2 buttons, all I did was click them. But I think that story really shows that you're willing to go above and beyond and like do what you have to figure out like who you can meet, how to, and just doing what you like anything you can basically to get what you want basically. And it's really interesting how like sometimes you can just tell like, oh yeah, this person is like out there taking the right steps, they're going to be successful. So it's not surprising that you have been able to find a great job in Japan. And I mean, I hope that things are going well with the position and everything. But that was incredibly impressive to me, though.
Things are going
Yeah.
super well, actually. I forgot to share this with you. I have my mom here, and it's her first international trip.
Wow, you were able to get her to do her first trip to Japan.
It's gonna
Wow.
be a month that she's
Was
been
it
here.
just did she just miss you so much that she just wanted to come and see you and she had no choice but to come to Japan to do that, or was she just that interested in seeing Japan?
I think, yeah, my parents are really concerned about me. They saw me losing a lot of weight. So,
Oh.
because we have maids for cleaning in India and I
Uh,
don't cook. So, I don't have to like do daily chores in India. I just have to care about my work. But here I have to care about the whole life. So, yeah, they got concerned and she just came here. I'm like, yeah, you're staying here for 90 days now. So,
but is it nice having her there?
It's super nice. It's
Hmm.
so nice to see her explore Japan the same way I did because I don't help her in anything. I just tell her, go there, do this, and I let her talk to the Japanese people. Japanese people are so used to the foreigners here, they know how to like help them. So
Yeah.
it's cool.
That helps a lot. People are so polite. They're willing to pretty much give you the shirt off their back, help you. People will like jump on trains with you and go to the next, the stop and be like, "Hey, get off here, go there." It's like you weren't planning to come to this area at all, were you? Like, I'm so sorry. Like, you feel bad,
You
but
feel so bad, literally.
exactly. But like, that is one really great aspect of Japan. So I'm glad to hear that she is having a good experience.
Yeah.
Wow. So cool. So like I said, you got a job.
Hmm.
You left your life in India,
Hmm.
moved to Tokyo. Now you're working in Shibuya in Tokyo. And I mean, how was that adjustment, of like, I think I met you on like your third day in Japan or something
Hmm.
like that, right? Like you had just arrived. So how is the adjustment from, India to Japan going, other than having lost some weight?
I gained that weight back again because
Uh
of eating lots of food already.
The food here is hard to resist sometimes, so that's understandable.
Oh yeah, that's an important topic to touch. I'm a
Okay.
vegetarian in Japan, okay?
Ah.
So I saw this podcast recently where there was a tourist and she was
Hmm.
saying that if you're a vegetarian, don't go to Japan. You won't be able to
Hmm.
find any food and probably die of starvation. And I want to
Okay.
sit here and say that I'm a vegetarian in Japan. I'm doing fine. The people here are so kind that I don't find restaurants for myself. They find restaurants for me.
Wow.
So that's how I've discovered all the restaurants around here.
Uh,
And there's an Indian restaurant. There are so many Indian restaurants here, and
there are
you
tons.
definitely find vegetarian food at the Indian restaurants. And if you have to find vegetarian food at the Japanese restaurants, you can do a little bit of effort and just Google.
Mm.
Google Japan's doing a great job again. So,
Yeah.
and yeah, that's it. Vegetarian in Japan. Yay. So let's talk about why I decided to come to Japan. So I've
Yes.
always had this amazing image about Japan
Okay.
because I've experienced it in and out before coming here. This is not my first time in Japan. This is my
Hmm.
second time in Japan. So so let's see what I had in my mind before actually moving here.
Hmm.
I've had a really long relationship with Japan. Thanks to
Hmm.
the Japanese government, I had this privilege of seeing the good side of Japan and the people here more
Hmm.
than just the bad side. Every place, every condition has a good side and a bad side, but you sometimes get tend to overlook the good side,
Hmm.
and that's something that I've had a privilege to that I have been shown more of.
I see. How
So
did you originally see Japan the first time?
yeah. First time when I came here, I was 17 years old, very young.
Okay.
It was an exchange program for students in STEM.
Ah. Ah.
So it was a fully funded trip. And we
Ah.
traveled across Kyoto, Nara, and Osaka with the Japanese government officials, and they treated us really well. It was a
Wow.
VIP treatment. And the Japanese government has stayed connected with me for 8 years. That's the longest relationship I've ever had with anyone.
Okay.
And they treat us really well. Every year they organize these meetups. They come
Hmm.
from Japan to India, they organize these meetups. So they have a lot of programs and scholarships in place for global talent in STEM. They really value them. And
Hmm.
that's how I've always viewed them sitting back in India, that they really value talent in STEM and they want to attract them, they want to give them all the support that they want. How I look at it is the Japanese government, the science and technology organization, has connections, good connections with the Indian science and technology government organization, and they have good connections with the top colleges in India. So they grab only the top talent to the top companies in Japan. Do you see
Hmm.
how there are so many engineering teams which are Indian?
Yeah.
Here, it's because
Yes.
they have top talent.
Right.
It's rooted down to the governments of science and technology organization. That's how strongly they want to support STEM talent. So that's how I've seen it always, ever since I was 17 years old, you know. And I am
Yeah.
also connected with these organizations in both ends, in India and in Japan, still.
Hmm. Yeah.
So that's how I've always viewed it as an
Hmm.
engineer.
Right.
And
So
um,
the government gave you this super positive experience, basically, and
hmm,
view of Japan through that, and you had that very positive experience, and you decided that you wanted to, at some point, kind of go deeper on that, and instead of just like kind of a short trip, actually
hmm.
live here like full time, do like the kind of full version of that, basically, right?
Yeah, they really tried to give us a wholesome experience,
Mm.
and they showed us around through the universities first. But universities like, okay, studying, studying, but they didn't want to narrow it down to just that. We also had host families. So I lived with host families, and
Ah,
personally, when somebody opens their home to you and you get to see how you live with them, have you seen Doraemon?
yes, I mean a bit,
It
not
felt
every
like I
episode.
was in Doraemon's house. So people
Right.
were lovely, everybody treated us so well. And since
Wow.
I've seen, like, lived in their houses and seen, it was a house in Osaka, so I think houses in Osaka are way better. So
Okay, fair enough.
that's what
I don't
I
know.
heard.
Is that like you mean like culturally because of the difference between like the big city vibe in Tokyo where it's a bit more like maybe colder, kind of closed off, whereas people are warmer in Osaka, that kind of thing? Or what is it about Osaka that you feel like makes it more of a good homestay experience?
I mean, the housing here is expensive.
It is expensive.
That's
So
it.
people can maybe afford a bit more space and have like
Yeah.
a little bit more of like a nice kind of home
Hmm.
environment. Whereas here,
Yeah.
apartments tend to be more cluttered, smaller, maybe not as like I don't know, like kind of luxurious of a feel when you're just trying to hang out with your family or whatever. Right? It's more cluttered.
And
That may
I've
be true.
also heard that people in Osaka are more sarcastic and better at
Mm,
taking jokes and have a good sense of humor.
I think that's pretty accurate. Yeah.
So yeah,
Wow.
when somebody opens their house to you and you get to live with them is actually when you know how people really are. So
Yeah.
I got a whole experience. Without that
Mm,
experience, I don't think I would have known how it is because when somebody comes here for the first time as a tourist, they just do the touristy thing. It's
mm,
very hard to get the non-tourist experience in Japan if you're not well informed.
mm,
And a lot of people don't get to do that. The people who know what to avoid and what to look at, who try to create their own experiences, only experience a non-touristy experience.
mm.
And it was amazing.
Wow.
So from that trip, what I took away, uh, the image of Japan was they really want global talent in STEM to come to Japan because
Mm,
they've stayed connected with me for 8 years now. So that's evident. The lifestyle's
mm,
amazing,
mm,
and they value STEM degree definitely because
mm.
they've got so many fully funded programs just for people in STEM degrees, fully funded programs. And they even pay
Right.
you after you come here.
Wow.
Uh,
Okay, wait.
yeah.
Is there like what is that program called exactly? Like if someone was interested in doing that, first of all, is it India specific? And then what would they like actually search for to find information about the program you did?
So, first question, is it India specific? No.
Hmm.
They do it
Okay.
for a lot of countries. I don't remember
Interesting.
the list of countries, but you can search it online. The program
Hmm.
is called My Program. There are so many programs, but I can only talk about my program.
Hmm.
My program is called Sakura Science Exchange Program.
Oh, okay.
So if you just Google it, we can share a link in the description. You
Yeah.
can just look for it online. How it
Yep.
works is it's not just about your degree, it's about your effort too. You just have to find a connection in Japan. By that I mean maybe a professor or maybe a lab or maybe something where you
Hmm.
can share your research to, and then that's how you're connected. And the person sitting in Japan applies on your behalf. So you don't apply from sitting in your country. The person sitting in Japan who's connected to you applies on your behalf, and that's how you are brought here.
But you have to find someone in Japan.
Yes.
Just like, how did you find that person?
So for me, they have so many programs. There's a high
Yeah.
school program, there's a college program, there's a PhD, doctoral, whatever, whatever, so many
Ah.
programs.
Yeah.
So for me, it was a high school program. My principal was connected to a professor in Japan, and that professor in Japan applied for my school to
Ah,
take 10 students. And then students from Japan's high school also came to my school. So it was
ah,
an exchange.
wow.
So you just need to find one connection that can apply for you. That's it.
Interesting.
And how you get in touch with them? Google. University of Tokyo has listed all the professors that work there. They have their emails right over there. And they also get paid for doing this. So they will be happy if you get in touch with them and you wanna take your research forward with them.
Wow. So everyone's incentivized to do
Yes.
it. So cold email.
Yes.
Wow. That is awesome. Yeah. So I'm glad that you were able to have kind of an initial positive experience in Japan. So then, but after you graduated from school, you decided to, for now, start your career kind of in India. But I guess you had this idea in the back of your head that you would love to, try Japan again at some point full time. And that's when you came across, I guess, the post on X through Japan Dev, and you applied, got the job, and then it was time, I guess, for you to actually come here to Tokyo. And you obviously made that move successfully. You're here. You've been here for about 5 months now, I believe, right? And how is life in Japan? Is it what you expected? Is it better, worse? Being an actual, like full time employee here, and like you said, having to do all the cooking and cleaning and everything yourself. Like, what? How's life?
Life's pretty amazing. I feel like Japan's my country and Tokyo's my city, honestly. I was born for Tokyo.
Wow.
And this is my first time in Tokyo. The last time when I came to Japan, I was in Kyoto, Osaka, and Nara only. And Tokyo, being the most populated city in the world, has the best infrastructure. They've structured everything so well. Moving around in Tokyo, especially in Shibuya, is like a world tour. You've got people from everywhere and not just tourists, full-time employees too. Like we talked about this last time, the
Yeah.
gentrification of Shibuya. They've been Shibuya has been under construction for so long
Yeah.
that it's finally like coming to its fruition, and they are steering away tourists from the office areas, and the office areas are actually able to see the people who work there. That's how I meet people when I go down for lunch. I meet people from other offices, and we just whoever is able to speak in English, I talk to them.
Yeah.
And then we become friends. That's how lovely they are.
Wow.
And everybody has a unique set of hobby, and I feel like they're so full of life all the time. And let's also highlight this, that there's a notion, my 6 month honeymoon period is still not over. The notion states that the first 6 months in Japan are really nice because Japan is like a protocol. It's a system of rules that you're not aware of. So the first 6 months you're like amazed by everything, like wow, oh my God. And then after those 6 months pass, you start getting annoyed by the same rules.
Right.
And
So you haven't
so
reached that point yet. So
not
you'll have to
yet.
see. But you're almost at 6 months and no issues so far.
No issues so far. It's been super easy, especially moving here alone. I moved here alone, and I found my apartment on my own, did all the paperwork. Paperwork still very mendoksai. I don't like opening paper. I've stayed digital all my life, and paperwork now is still musukashi, but I'm getting the hang of it, I think. I don't miss paying my bills. It's really safe for women. I lost my purse in my second month here. I lost my purse with everything in it. All my cards, my residence card. I'm like a grandma. I forgot where I put my purse. And I reported it to the police in Shibuya station, and they couldn't speak in English, but they knew how to handle a foreigner who cannot speak in Japanese. So they have rooted it down to each and every system. How to handle a foreigner is like in their guidelines.
Right.
Right. These are the
Yeah.
things that when you live here, you know. But people looking from the outside, they don't know. So they
Right.
think that it's so difficult, or how will I live here? But it's nothing like that. Everything is super comfortable.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I reported it, and then I only had my online payment system. So I was relying on that, and I was like blocking all the cards and applying for my new Zairo card because without the residence card, you can get deported or something like that, right?
You have to
And
carry it at all times, technically. So yeah, it's an issue if you lose it.
so I was almost about to get deported. No, that's like taking it too far. I was not getting
Probably. Yeah.
deported. So 2 days later, I got my purse back with everything in it, all the cash to the to each yen. It can only happen in Japan, right? That's how.
Yeah. That's one of the things I absolutely love about Japan. It's good to hear that as a woman you've had like no issues either. But I just love that the safety and like how carefree the lifestyle here is, even in like you said, because that's the middle of Shibuya, which is like it's like the Times Square basically of Tokyo, and tons of people around, just super like um, you know crowded area, and yet no worries. You lose your purse, your cell phone, your whatever, it'll generally come back to you. Not 100% of the time, nothing is absolutely perfect, but like it's really not a big concern. Neither is like safety. I've never had any kind of issues, ever felt unsafe in my 12 years here. And, that is one of the absolute biggest perks, I think, when it comes to living in Japan. It's
Hmm.
like no matter how long you live here, like the novelty of being here, there is the honeymoon thing that does wear off somewhat, of course. You get used to it. It just becomes like another it just becomes your daily life. But the safety, the carefree lifestyle, I never can like you never stop that like getting the value from that. You know what I mean? And then whenever I go back to the U.S., I always feel like I have to be like kind of watching my back, to be honest. If I'm in like a city or whatever, it's like okay, there's these areas where you're not allowed to go unless you want to get mugged or like robbed or whatever. And in Tokyo, it's just like I can walk around at any time, go wherever I want throughout the entire city, really the entire country,
Hmm.
and there's never really any danger.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And uh, I've heard similar things from other people that like
Mm,
work in Shibuya. They're like,
right.
if you dress up this well and walk around the city in any other country, you'll be considered as a rich person and you'll be robbed. But here,
Mm,
my office is right near Omotesando and the fashion district, which so everybody at the office is dressed so well. Everybody in Tokyo is dressed so well. It's like a runway. It's
mm.
so amazing, and everybody feels super safe.
Wow, that's amazing. Cool. So you're working as a software engineer. Like, um, are you doing like back end, front end, or like what kind of tech stack are you using now?
My interview here
Mm,
was like I was tested on my front end experience, my back end experience, and a little
mm,
bit of how I deployed our project on Kubernetes. So
okay.
that's the experience that I currently hold.
Mm,
So they tested me on that.
okay. And then day to day, like what kind of work are you actually doing?
My work, same. Front end, back
Okay.
end, a little bit of how cloud infrastructure has been handled.
Okay. But like very modern kind of tech stack, Kubernetes, some, site reliability type stuff as well when necessary, back end, jumping between the two. So you feel like tech wise, it's just as like modern, just, the same technologies and stuff like that that you'd be using back in India or somewhere else, like in Silicon Valley or anything. Like, I think one kind of negative image some people might have of the Japan kind of tech industry is that it's a little bit like old and
Mm,
maybe behind somewhat. And what I always tell people is it really just depends on the company. There are tons of like Silicon Valley style startups and like more international companies that are truly using like cutting edge tech, doing all the same technologies and stuff like Kubernetes or you know like we use like GCP,
mm.
AWS, cloud based, all this kind of stuff. Just like the startups anywhere else. And has that been the case for you as well?
Yeah, so when I was looking for a job here,
Hmm.
my intention was I want to work with the same standards that I've been working at still. So my previous
Okay.
experience that I hold, I've worked with a global team. Even though the office was in India, my team was we were remotely connected. The
Ah,
teams were in US and Europe and Albania and China and Japan and Germany. So we one product had teams all over the world because it was a global product, and that's why we had teams everywhere. It was
Mm,
not a big company. It was a startup with a lot of global teams. And that's what I've worked at, products that serve global standards.
mm,
And that's what I was looking for because that's what I enjoy doing. Because when you put people from so many different backgrounds in one team, they
mm,
shed off their cultural, historical, corporate stuff. They cannot bring it to the table because everybody has their own corporate culture, which
mm.
the person in front of you won't be able to understand. And we shed all of that off and we just focus on tech, focus on building, focus on using the best technologies to make sure that our product is serving the customers the best.
Wow.
That's what my standards were. And that's what I believe every global tech company's standards are.
Mm,
I think so.
right.
And that's what I was looking for when I was looking for a job in Japan. I
Mm,
This notion didn't come to me that because I don't know Japanese, I might not get hired. Why? Because I had Japanese and Chinese team members in my previous team and they couldn't speak
right.
in English, but they were still coding, they were still contributing. I'm like, so I cannot speak in Japanese, but I have my skills. In
Mm,
tech, as an engineer, you only get judged or get hired based on your tech skills because that's your output. That's
mm,
what you're working on. You're not customer facing, you don't have to talk to the people, you just have to make sure that the code is working well,
mm,
as at least in your starting years. I don't know what happens when you become a senior. I'm not a senior yet. I just like
mm.
coding. I like doing algorithms. I like making sure that our current product is moving forward with its strength,
Yep.
whatever. And that's those were my standards. And when I applied, I didn't know what to expect. But
Mm,
since you categorized the job so well. It
mm,
said no Japanese required. So
mm,
I was able to get in. And when I saw the interviewers, they were global. Everybody was different. I'm like, this is my team. This is what I
mm,
wanted. Good,
mm.
green check.
Yeah.
And when we started talking, they just wanted to know. So there was a screening round at first. The screening round was amazing. It was
Yeah.
really good because so one difference between screening rounds in most companies in India and global
Mm,
global teams is
mm,
that so global teams here in general, not just a global team in Japan, a global team like anywhere, is that Indian interviewing screening systems include a lot of data structures and algorithms and system
mm.
design, but mostly
Okay.
data structures and algorithms. You'll have these big tech companies like PayPal or big companies with big engineering teams, which have 6 rounds of data structures and algorithms only. So that's something that I didn't want because that
Mm,
to me is very robotic. I enjoy doing tech. So I like being assessed on what I have worked on
mm.
because that's how it should be.
Right.
Yeah. Those were
Yes.
my standards, and an interview is a two-way thing. It's not just the company testing you. You are also testing the company because you're going to spend time with them. I am
Mm,
very nitpicky about the team that I'm going to work with because I'm going to spend most of my time with them. So that's why, like, I made sure that I get to talk to everybody that I'm going to work with, and that's what they were so open in doing that too.
mm.
So a global tech team has the same standards all across the world. It's not a Japanese thing anymore.
Right. The point is that those global standard tech teams exist in Japan too. So I think that is one of the most, well, one of the biggest questions I get is like, what is like the work kind of culture like? I think we can dig into that a bit more um, later. But like the reason that people ask is that they have this concern because maybe they read online on Twitter or whatever, some negative kind of experience that someone had at a tech company here, and they have this idea in their heads that it's going to be this all this overtime, terrible like work, sort of conditions and everything, and it's very scary. So they're like, is it true that like the work conditions are so bad there in tech? And it's like the like no, because you only need one company, right? You need one team. Like you said, you just have to find your team that
Hmm.
fits your criteria. and uses the tech that you want to use, has whatever speaks, whether it's English or whatever you want to do. And there are enough of those truly like modern type teams and companies that if you just search and you're a little bit selective,
Hmm.
then there are so many success cases of people like you where it's like I found this awesome team that I love and like we're speaking English. I didn't need Japanese, you know, and so I really want to help showcase those stories to kind of counteract because unfortunately it's true that some people do come and have a very negative experience, right? And they tend to be the loudest ones on
Yeah,
social media, right? Like going and telling everyone, "Oh, Japan sucks, don't come here." So I want to make that a bit more balanced and at least be like, no, if you can actually have a great experience here too. And I think you're a perfect example of that, which is one reason I really wanted to, share your story with our audience too. But yeah, I think that you had some really, really interesting points in there though. Like you just got to find the team for you.
yeah.
Don't assume it doesn't exist. Find it basically, and you were able to do that. And you're able to work on the same kind of like tech stack and everything.
Hmm.
Um, so it sounds like you found a pretty awesome situation,
Yeah, let's
right?
talk about how tech stack works for a full stack engineer.
Okay,
Uh, for a full stack engineer, you have front end. For front end, the current favorite is React.
true.
Now, it's up to the engineering leads to decide if you use React in JavaScript or TypeScript. My previous experience was in JavaScript. Now here we use TypeScript. So not a lot of transition. TypeScript is like an upgrade because it's improved.
Right.
And for backend, if it's a very old company, they would be using Java. My previous company had a really old set of libraries, like 30 years old. So at that time, Java was the best choice. So they continued with Java and they've got really, really strong libraries in Java. And now I do Kotlin. So again, upgrade from Java to Kotlin
Nice.
because this is a new product. So um, went towards Kotlin. And I also have a chance to work on Golang because I don't know.
Right. But exactly, that's like very much a cutting edge stack. The Kubernetes, Go, Kotlin, React, especially with TypeScript, like that's again all the same languages and stuff like that you're going to find in Silicon Valley startups, places like that too. So like, yeah, that exists here. Yeah.
My last company had its product on Azure Cloud. The whole
Mhm.
infra was over there, and here we have Google Cloud. Our whole
Mhm.
infra is over here. So
Yeah.
not a lot of differences here.
Yeah. GCP is super popular here. In fact, probably gaining popularity, I would say. I mean, AWS is obviously massive too. You can't go wrong with either one, but GCP seems to be gaining, I would say.
Yep.
Yeah, that's cool.
So I think they saw that since I already have experience in these things, and I kind of fit in this role, and I'm coachable to work on their tech stack.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it's great because you're kind of getting the best of both worlds, right? Because you've found a great work environment that fits
Yes.
what you were looking for. And just by being here, you get kind of like I mentioned, the kind of carefree, nice lifestyle. People are super polite. It's just like very clean, nice environment. You know what I mean? Wherever
Yeah.
you go. And if you can get both of those things and you can just figure out like the work environment for you, life in Japan can be absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
And it sounds like
Let's
you've carved out a really good life for yourself here.
Yes,
But yeah,
so far so good.
yeah. So I mentioned the kind of work conditions,
Hmm.
work culture. That's obviously a big topic when it comes to Japan. And
Hmm.
you have actually kind of made some waves on Twitter,
Hmm.
X, about this topic. So I would kind of like to dig into a viral tweet that you had recently. And let me just read it out real quick, actually. Being an engineer, I was constantly reminded that you are a woman. In Japan, I'm reminded that I'm an engineer. In India, you're a woman engineer. In Japan, you're an engineer. So, like I said, this went pretty viral and made some waves in the Japan kind of tech community. And there were various responses, I think, to this. Um, but this is a super interesting take on the work culture of Japan. So, do you think you can kind of unpack, uh, you know, the kind of story behind this, why you decided to tweet this, and like kind of what your experience has been that made you want to kind of express this?
Sure. While talking about this, let's talk about my intention for
Okay.
that tweet, and also let's touch the company cultures and also tech team cultures.
Okay.
Those are the three core things that I was focusing on while tweeting this, because I
Okay.
suddenly had this shift of focus one day when I was working here, and I thought this is something like this is a path towards my growth. So let me just document it. I use Twitter as my diary,
Okay.
basically, and I
Sure.
I love engagement on my tweets. So it was also engagement farming experiment, which
Okay, I
worked.
see. Well, it worked. Yes.
So my intention with that tweet was that I wanted to attract engineers who would come out and disagree with what I'm saying, especially female engineers, because there are still so few of us globally, and I like connecting with people, so I was trying to find people with my same niche. So that was sort of the goal of that tweet, and I could not attract females who disagreed with that. And
You couldn't. Implying that most people probably had a similar experience, you think? Or
I
do
wanted
you?
them to
Yeah.
disagree to this and say that, hey, no, my team is amazing, okay? I'm working
Oh, okay.
here.
Yeah, yeah.
My growth is being put to attention here. So I wanted female engineers to come out and disagree to what I
Okay.
said.
Okay.
But
But
my this experiment was a total failure because I could not attract those people.
I say, well, I mean, it sounds from the tweet that you're kind of praising Japan. You're saying that they allow women to be engineers first, and you're not kind of pigeonholed by being a woman, right? But
Exactly.
you weren't able to find people who agreed with that take.
I wasn't able to find people who would say that they have really good teams in India.
Oh, in
But
India. Oh, okay, right, right.
yeah,
I
because I
see.
said in India you're a woman engineer.
Right. I see. And there was a lack of women coming out and saying, no, actually, I'm a woman engineer in India and it's great.
Yeah,
It
I'm not
was, yeah,
reminded of being a woman. They focus on my cognitive skills.
right. I see. I see. So you were
But
hoping you'd see more of that, more people defending India rather than Japan.
later I did find out good company cultures, so I'm happy. It
Okay.
did lead to good results later
I see.
than I expected, yeah.
Okay. So what about on the Japan side? Did you face much backlash of people saying like, "Hey, actually like Japan, you know, there's, pointing to some statistics or whatever and say like, actually it's super like behind on, gender issues and things like that." Was that something that you faced at all or no?
Yeah, that was a discovery. People came
Okay.
out saying how women here are not treated. Is this a good thing? I'm not
It's
sure.
fine. I mean, we're just I think it's interesting to see like what people's reactions to the tweet were.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're just stating facts here. Yes, people's
Yeah.
reaction to that tweet was that I should not speak before I understand the whole situation. And I was really unaware of a lot of situations happening here. So they sent in a lot of articles about how Japan has been unfair and they have accepted it publicly that they have been unfair with a few professional paths for women.
I
And
see.
that was interesting to see actually. It feels good to be here.
That's good. Yeah, I mean that's of course there are a lot of people with a lot of different experiences, right? Japan's a big country, and I'm sure that there are probably a lot of issues related to this, and I think I hope that it's improving at least. And I think your experience shows that at least if you are in the right company and in the right team and everything, then it can be like a pretty great experience, and you're able to focus on your engineering and not have to be pigeonholed by being a woman or whatever. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I think it's great that you're expressing that and kind of showing that you can find this kind of situation here. this environment. Um, so yeah, I think it's also illustrative to kind of just compare. Like, is there anything specifically that's like kind of different between India and Japan in terms of like your day to day kind of work?
One big realization that I had after coming here is that it all comes down to what you bring to the table. So there are two things here. First
Mm,
is company culture, and with that, there's team culture.
mm,
Company culture is a company as a whole, and then the team culture is when the actual contribution that you make while working in that company. So I really liked working in my team because it was a global team, and that's where I was providing most value.
okay.
That's what I liked in my previous experience. In the
Mm,
company culture, I really liked support from the leadership because it was a small company. You were really connected to all the hierarchies. You could go
mm,
and talk to anybody. So it would remove the stigma of being fearful of the leadership. So that was not there. I really liked the support from the leadership and support from my team. These were the only things that I liked. And what what I was made aware of after coming here, like something that you don't see when they're right in front of your eyes, but when you go somewhere else and you see this shift in things that are considered normal here but were not considered normal there. For
mm,
example, we've got in all the Indian offices, you have really strong HR guidelines about how you're supposed to dress. If you dress even a little bit more than what HR expects you not to dress like, you will be put on the spot and told not to dress like that. So it'll be like every day you'll have to think about, am I dressing correctly or not? Cut to, I come to an office in Tokyo. And then
right.
I look at the people here. They're being their best versions, craziest versions, quirkiest versions. They're bringing their whole personality to the work. They're not hiding themselves. They're not shy to say anything. And
Mm,
that was a big culture shift for me,
mm,
especially company culture shift. That you can down dress, you can up dress, and
mm,
just be you and
mm,
focus on the work. We do not expect you to have a certain type of hair color, or you can have any crazy hair color. You can go crazy with your outfits. You can
mm,
come in your pajamas. We don't care.
right.
You know, that was so.
Yes,
I thought that you were labeled as not focused on work if you were doing that, but here it's not like that.
I say.
You're not labeled as not focused on work. So that was a good,
Yeah,
strong point.
that's
So I
awesome.
don't, this is one thing that I don't have to think about every day. So that's a big
Mm,
distraction, that distraction
yeah.
is removed now.
Mm,
And the second thing, um, here people have follow their creative hobbies. They have their side businesses. There are so
mm,
many people in my company with side businesses. They like, I
mm.
have a ramen shop, go over there, ask for free ramen. I'm like, okay. I have a curry shop, go over there, ask for free curry. I'm like, is it vegetarian? They said no. I'm like, okay.
Oh well. Yeah.
I have this education business. And so people are allowed to do these things in Indian offices. If you even try to pursue your creative side or whatever you do out of your no work time is
Mm,
still assessed in some way, and you're again labeled as not focused on work. But here they don't care about what you do after your working hours, so I think that's super amazing. They have strong boundaries.
wow.
That's lovely.
That's really interesting.
You, right? You started this as a side project within Mercari, and
True.
they allowed you.
I know. I was very lucky actually that they were on board with it because I think it's really interesting because in Japan, I feel like the tech industry is kind of bifurcated into two kind of worlds. There's like the more traditional world where, to be honest, a lot of what you're describing could actually be kind of an issue. Like there is more of a pressure to, I guess, conform when it comes to hair color and maybe dress and things like that. But that's kind of like the
Oh,
old way of doing things. It exists,
it still
but
exists. Those companies,
exactly,
I know
they
people
do.
in those companies. I have
Me
friends.
too. So that's what I'm saying. Like, but what we try to focus on with Japan Dev is that other kind of like modern, like globally focused kind of world. And within that, I think that your experience fits really well with mine as well, where it's like you could dress however you want, express yourself however you want. pretty much, as long as you were, doing your work and, um, you know, not acting out or anything like that, then no one cared about those types of things. It was just all about like what you could kind of bring to the table, basically what you said, and especially in your work. And I think it's really great to highlight that that is kind of the new within software development, especially because it's not client facing. There aren't really any logical reasons to have to wear a suit or a certain dress code or anything like that. And there are a lot of companies. I worked for four different tech companies, and they were all super chill about that stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly, including Mercari. Um, these days, it's very common also to allow like side projects and side works, which was really important for me starting Japan Dev while working full time at Mercari, like you mentioned. If they hadn't had that, I don't know if have been able to do this. But yeah, they really embrace that, and as do a lot of these other type of like I said, modern companies that are trying to do things like the kind of global, international way here in Japan.
Yeah.
And also, I think that second world is growing, and I think it's becoming more and more clear that that's the superior way to do software engineering, right? To let people, be themselves
Mhm.
and not get caught up on things that at the end of the day don't really matter, like what they're wearing or whatever. And I think that that's a great shift. And I'm really glad to hear that that's been your experience as well.
We have to give it to you because you specifically make sure that Japan Dev only has good culture companies and you steer
Yeah.
away from the bad culture companies.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not like I'm trying to make fun of any companies or like say that they're bad or whatever. It's just like I try to showcase and really highlight the positive ones. And then by doing so, it's like trying to kind of raise them up, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And show that like there's a different way to do it. And this is actually more efficient. It's better to, have get rid of these restrictions and embrace people's like individuality and, let them kind of do their best work and, uh,
exactly.
all that stuff. So I love to see that. I think it's great for Japan. It's great for, attracting more people like us who want that kind of environment. I think there's so many people around the world who do. So yeah, I think it's a really a positive thing for the industry. And I'm glad that your company is really embracing that.
This just
Mm,
sheds off the unnecessary worries that you should not be
mm,
focusing on and just shifts your
right.
focus to the thing that you actually want to focus on. So that's
Mm,
amazing. I think this comes when the founder of the company has seen the world. So founder of my company's founder has traveled a lot.
mm,
There's a company that I really like in India. I really like that culture's company. It's growing really fast. That
mm,
founder has also seen the whole world. So when the founder is like, he knows what's happening around the world, he knows how to like make sure that the best work comes out of people when they are
mm,
being themselves.
mm, mm.
That's it.
That's great. Yeah, it's funny because Mercari has kind of a similar background where
Really?
the founder, I think he sold his previous company and then took
Mm.
some time off in between, traveled around. I think he did like a year, like just 1 year, kind of around the world type trip,
Mm.
and just got like inspired basically, and then came
Mhm.
back and started Mercari right after that, and used a lot of the learnings and stuff that he got from traveling around and seeing so many different places, and that allowed it to have like a super unique culture, and I think that helped it become very successful. It was the first unicorn ever in Japan, and has grown a lot since then. Continued to be like kind of a top company in the ecosystem. So it the point is like that clearly works, and I'm glad to see that there's these success cases of like here they did this, and look, they had this great outcome. So there's a lot of growing companies that are doing that, and it's working very well.
And the
Yeah.
company culture here is also so fun. Like when I came here, they had me go and take a professional, fun portfolio photo shoot. I was
Nice.
given my own business cards. I'm a software engineer and I have a business card. And so that's like a Japanese culture thing, right to
Mm,
its core. So it's a very global company, but with Japanese values, which is the best.
mm,
Guys, I'm telling you. It's the best.
mm. Yeah.
Working in Shibuya is amazing, and
Mm,
the values, when I really like when a company has its values set and they have their values set and they really speak for themselves. They've really thought about those values.
Mm.
There's one thing about Japanese work culture is that they're very discussion oriented, is what I want to
Hmm.
say. They spend a lot of time in discussing and they will not move on unless everybody sitting on that table agrees with that discussion. And
Mm.
there was a study that they were showing us is that how this culture only exists here and it does not exist anywhere else in India
Mm.
or in I can only talk about India. In
Right.
India, this is an actual study by Netflix or something
Mm.
that most of the places the decisions are to be taken by your superior. So if he say whatever he says, you have to agree with him,
Yep.
and it's very less likely to be discussion oriented. If he says no, you cannot go on with it, but here you can bring out all your creative ideas
Mm.
to all the hierarchies that you have up to the top
Mm.
and discuss them out. And
Right.
if it feels good to the people sitting on that table, all the stakeholders present over there, then it
Mm.
goes forward. I think that's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think it's beautiful they highlight that. I would not have seen this unless they would have told me that this is how it goes. Don't be
Mm.
alarmed. This is the culture.
Nice. Yeah, I think that has some pros and cons as well. It can sometimes feel like decisions take a little bit longer because of that kind of process you have to go through. But it's true that it gives everyone kind of a voice. And potentially, the more people that you're able to kind of hear from, you can cover more of the, pros and cons of the decision and maybe on average reach like a better outcome, right? Or
Hmm.
at least, have more chances for people to, share their views on it. So I think it's a good way to do it. I'm glad that you're making use of that and like, sharing your ideas.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, let's talk about the work-life balance actually.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, so are you doing any overtime or anything like that? Or
I think what
like, yeah,
people would be interested in hearing is that do I
yeah.
have work from home or not? I
Yes. Okay.
we've got remote hybrid work
Okay.
culture.
Mm.
There are there are settings where people work from home once a week or
Mm.
thrice a week. I
Okay.
have thrice a week in place because I like going to the office. You
Okay.
meet some. Imagine I'm in the office. I'm thinking about my PR. I'm going to grab my coffee. The coffee is like right across the floor. It's in a totally different corner. So
Mm.
I'm walking. I'm thinking about my PR. A person will be walking by and they'll be like Otsukare sama desu, and I'll suddenly have to be aware of my surroundings, and I'll also have to say Otsukare sama desu, and that's how we become friends. We realize we speak English, and you get to know their crazy stories. Japanese people live their life to the fullest. They don't leave
Mm.
anything out, okay? And
Yeah.
I think that's one thing that I also like about the Japanese office culture. They make sure that you know that we are here, Ki Otsukare sama desu is always around. You need to
Yes.
be aware of your surroundings, who is around you, greet everybody, wish
Mm.
everybody on their
Mm.
hard work. That's lovely.
Yeah.
So I suddenly have to like not be within myself, but as an engineer, you are only thinking about PRs.
Yeah.
Mostly. And you get to talk to so many people from different teams.
Mm.
So I understand different sectors of how a company works too. And I also get to talk to so many other engineers in other teams. We have a big team here.
Wow. That's awesome. So were you able to choose if you wanted to do the once or three times per week in office?
I can choose.
Okay. So at least once, um, but you wanted to be in office a little bit more. So you did 3 days a week.
And it's pretty flexible. Like even now, I can work from home anytime I want. It's just one application away.
Nice. Yeah, that's pretty common right now. I think during COVID, a lot of companies went full remote, of course. And then there's been a move more toward hybrid. So I think that's kind of the default. And like the type of companies that we kind of work with at Japan Dev, it's
Mhm.
mostly, 2 days a week, 3 days a week in office, the rest remote, that kind of situation right now.
Hmm.
So yeah, we'll see longer term how things kind of move if they go a little bit further back toward being in office, maybe full time or not. I don't. I mean, I think it's little bit up in the air right now, but right now it's pretty much remote, like around half the time for most companies.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
people are like really spoiled now. I'm in connection with these fresh grads who are working here, who are almost graduating here this year,
Yeah.
and they're like, no, we don't want to go to office. We only want fully remote culture, and they are like uh, targeting those companies, and they are getting good offers from those companies too.
Hmm.
So those companies exist,
Yeah.
especially if you're a person who can speak Japanese and English, and you're a fresh grad here. These
Hmm.
companies will run after you. Even if you want remote work, they will give you.
Right. So has the language barrier been an issue at all? I guess within like your work life, um, have you ever felt like you were kind of missing out by not speaking Japanese, or is English 100% fine? Like no issues?
Global tech companies are really mindful of being inclusive. So
Mm.
even though it's a Japanese company which is turning towards globalization, they make sure that they have translators in place in company-wide meetings, team-wide
Mm.
meetings, because they know that they have hired people who cannot speak Japanese. So that's the least that they can do, I think. So
Mm.
they're fully aware of what they're doing. So I've never felt out of place. They've always made me feel like a princess.
That's awesome. And you're not working long hours or anything like that, just like 8 hours a day.
No, they force me to not even work like 30 minutes more than I'm supposed to be working for.
Really?
But sometimes I like working more, and when HR is like, don't work more, I'm like, please let me do my work.
Wait, so what actually happens? Like, if you are, like, let's say your work day is coming to a close and you're starting to work a little bit beyond the time when you're supposed to end for the day, what happens?
If it's more, HR will just ask me not to work more,
I say.
and I'll tell them, okay, thank you for taking care of me.
So do you just get like a Slack message that they're like, "Hey, I see you're still online. Like, the day's over. Like, go home," that kind of thing, or what? Like,
It's not that extra yet, but
okay.
yeah, they keep checking on me.
That's amazing though. They so they're kind of overseeing. They want to probably keep a culture because it's one of those things where if a couple people start to do it, then maybe some people around them will start to feel like they need to do it too, and
Mhm.
like the overwork thing can kind of spread. So I think
Uh,
actually you'd be surprised how many companies will like come to me and be like, "Hey, I want to hire some foreigners for my team because people are like working too much, and I
uh,
want to get like a better culture." And I know foreigners will just leave it, like when at the appointed time, they're better at just like cutting off their work and leaving, and that's what we want as a company. Like
uh,
you'd be like surprised how many teams will actually come and say that, and
wow.
yeah, because sometimes people feel like if they're someone more senior than them or whatever is still there at the office, even though they're just trying to finish some feature or whatever that they just have to get done by the next day or whatever, and they feel like they have to stay too or whatever. So it's good to have someone like a forcing function from like HR or
Mhm.
whatever that's like, hey, no, you don't have to do that. Like it's not necessary to work overtime. So I think it's good to have that.
Even for vacation days, if you've not taken your vacation days, they would force you to go and take a vacation.
Sadly, that's a big problem in Japan. Like, because we can talk about the amount of vacation you get, which I actually think is pretty good in Japan.
It is.
Um, yeah, it's not bad because there's so many public
Holidays.
holidays. Exactly,
Yeah.
there's a ton of public holidays. Basically, like at least once a month, you'll get like a Monday off, and then there's like Golden Week. There's the end of year holidays. Yeah, a lot of companies will do a summer holiday of like 3 to 5 days too, and then you'll get like at least a minimum of 2 weeks like paid PTO as well, potentially more, and then that goes up each year too. So you end up getting a pretty good package in terms of vacation days. But the problem is some companies have people who don't use them, and it's a
Mm.
similar thing where it's like the social aspect of like this person is working super hard and like doing overtime and didn't use any of his vacation days. So I feel like I kind of can't either because then I would look bad in relation to him or whatever. And a lot of companies like, again are like, no, like please use them. We want to have a positive work environment and like we want you to go and have this vacation and then be refreshed and come back, with new ideas and stuff. And at your company, that's the kind of stance that they have. Would you say?
Yeah, I think those days are gone when I mean, I'm a Gen Z. Maybe that's a millennial thing. I don't know. I don't
I
make
wonder.
I don't make decisions based on how my team is behaving. I know with what type of potential I want to reach, and I make my own decisions. I know when I want to take vacation days. I know when I want to stop working. I know what I'm learning. I know what I'm working towards. So that's my mindset. And since I've done this whole thing once before, I have had a lot of learnings from that of how I don't want to lead my life anymore and what I want to go towards. I love engineering. I want to become best in that. That's it.
I say that's a great perspective to have. I think, and you think that's like very common among Gen Z. You think they're
Yeah,
past the whole like worrying peer pressure thing. They're just doing their own thing.
exactly. We are very individualistic now.
Interesting. Yeah, that I think that's good too for like the tech industry in general to have more of those types of people who are able to kind of bring that culture um, to like the tech, especially in Japan, these like kind of tech teams. And I think actually a lot of companies will appreciate that too. So that's great.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I don't know. Is there anything about like the office kind of culture or work life here that surprised you or was different than you expected, whether better or worse? Like just any kind of unexpected challenges or anything like that? Or was it just what you like? Because if it truly is like a global team, I guess it's not that different maybe than what you were doing in India or would be doing elsewhere.
Just the general things like even if your team is global, you
Mm,
guys speak in English. We have other teams who speak in Japanese and who only can speak Japanese. So they have Japanese Slack messages, but
mm,
Slack's like very advanced. So you can just add a tag, English tag, and you get the English translation. I
mm,
put the English message, they put the Japanese tag, they get the Japanese translation. So that's one thing that you sometimes have to communicate with you have to read a lot of Japanese and you have to make sure that you're being mindful that if they're writing in Japanese and also in English, then you also write in English and in Japanese. Be polite.
uh,
Be super polite. I really like that. They're super, super polite.
mm,
Because Indians are very direct and unfiltered. But here you have to be super polite. And
sure.
and there's one more thing. So in meetings, when there are meetings, sometimes are there's no interpretation, but you can use Google's subtitles.
Mm,
So that's one thing. That's one thing
yeah.
that I leverage.
Okay.
Because when you're talking to a team member online who cannot speak in English, but you just have to get that work done. They
Mm,
open subtitles, I open subtitles, they get translated, I get the work done. That's how it goes.
nice.
Everything is pretty simple. Now, it's the best time to be in Japan. Translations so well. If you have Wi-Fi, you can get around anywhere, literally.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, Google Translate helps a lot too. You can just hold your phone up to the menu in a restaurant or whatever. It'll just tell you what all the stuff is. It's very good now. Google
Yeah.
Maps works perfectly. Everything is in English. Um, like, yeah, the translation apps and stuff have gotten quite good. My
Mm-hmm.
company also, like, I've also worked at companies that had like the Slack emoji where you could just add uh, whatever, like the emoji basically on a Slack message and it will like create a little thread and
Yeah.
translate it for you. That is super nice. Um, but that's great. So the language barrier hasn't really been like a big.
Not language barrier is the least that you have to worry about. But people learn Japanese out of their own interest. That's one thing that I plan to do too. But I'm really bad at it because I'm focusing more on engineering. Yeah, whatever. So, one more thing is that, they've got this camping trip coming on, and I'm so worried.
Who
The
has a
people,
camping trip coming up?
yeah,
Your
it's a
company?
company culture.
Okay.
You-
Ah, yes. It's like you're going, all the whole company is going on like a trip together.
Yeah, the all the people who were hired in my year
Ah,
cycle.
cool. That should be fun.
It's stressful.
Really?
We will be sleeping in those sleeping bags.
Ah. I did one of those once, and we went to like Okinawa and stayed
Oh,
in.
we are also going to Okinawa, I
You
think.
are? Oh,
Yeah,
nice. That'll be awesome. Okinawa's the best.
right?
Yes, it'll
It's
be
a little
fun.
bit stressful. It'll be for 5 days. I hope we
That's
have one.
awesome. I think it'll be fun, and then you can kind of get to know your coworkers and kind of a different
Yeah.
different atmosphere. Deepen the relationships a bit. And I do think they call it like a team building trip or whatever sometimes, right? Because like it does help build, I think, connections with your team members, and can be a good thing to do.
So I
Or it can
really
be
like
super awkward, one of the two, because everyone's forced to be there, and it's like, I'd rather just go on vacation with my own family. But no, if you make the most of it, it can actually be really fun, in my experience.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
they've got everything in check. They know when they want to make sure that the people are like blowing off steam, and they know
Hmm.
what to do. Like a good
That's awesome.
company.
That's great. Yeah, it all depends on the company, you know. But it sounds like they have it, planned out well. And 5 days is longer than usual. Actually, that's a pretty good amount of time. So I think I suspect it'll be fun though. Yeah,
There's
and
also
mm,
this other observation about tech teams in Japan. I think that whoever comes first, whoever starts building the engineering team makes the culture of that team. In my team, we've got a lot of products. So for other products, it's a Japanese team. For my product, it's a global team because the person who came first made sure that this is the culture that I want. But in other companies, you'll find that there's only a European team, or there's only a Indian team, or there's only another French team. That's what I've observed. So whoever gets in there first decides the whole culture of their team. That's one observation that I've made.
interesting. So when you start a new team, it's incredibly important, and you can kind of decide what kind of culture you want the team to have. So I
Yeah,
guess if anyone ever has a chance to like start a team or be one of the kind of founding members of a new team,
keep it global.
then keep it global. Right. That's awesome. Yeah. And I don't know, I guess, do you have any other like advice that you would give, if someone wanted to follow in your footsteps and maybe they're in India or somewhere else and they want to move to Japan and have an experience like yours where they're in a global tech company? Like, is there anything that you would tell them to help them kind of make that happen?
I want everyone to know that if you have a degree in STEM, or if you're even slightly interested in STEM, you can
Mm,
find so many opportunities here. Every college has so many scholarship programs. The government is totally inclined towards getting the best global STEM talent in Japan. So you'll be treated really well. I've been treated so well by them up until now. They're in touch with me and they invite me to stuff. They make sure that I'm settling in well. That's how close we are. They're good friends of me too. And all they want is to make sure that Japan Science and Technology Agency is connected well with the science and technology agencies all around the world.
mm,
Be it in India, be it in other Asian country, be it in a European country, be it in a Western country. That's all
mm.
they want. So if you're really interested in STEM, Japan will love you.
Wow. Awesome. Yeah, there is this very strong need for like STEM workers right now. As I think people know, Japan has kind of a declining population and also a lack of people graduating in computer science programs and stuff like that. So there's a massive need for more and more, like especially like software engineers. So the timing I think is great right now for anyone who wants to maybe move here and do something like what you did and live out their dream of being in Tokyo and working for like a tech company here. So yeah, I think your story is like super inspiring to a lot of people who have just always wanted to try living here, but they haven't pulled the trigger and actually done it. But you did it. It's working out super well. I'm really glad to see that. And I'm really happy that people are going to be able to see the success story of of what you've been able to do. And hopefully it'll inspire some people to do the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, thank you so much. That's pretty much all the questions that I had, unless you had any other kind of ending comments or advice.
Uh, Not really.
Okay. No, but I think that you had a lot of great insights about like the work culture and, the stuff about using governmental programs and,
Mm,
leveraging your university and,
mm,
just doing outreach to people, whether through your university or people in Japan and things like that. I think is a really great tip for people. And it's true, there are so many of those opportunities. You just have to find them and like really, grab them. So it's awesome that you were able to do that and that you then came and lived here full time. And it wasn't, like it wasn't like you didn't have any issues or anything like that. You had a great experience here that was in line with like your positive experience, you know, uh, back when you were a teenager. So I think that's awesome. I think people can learn a lot from that. And thank you so much for sharing those insights.
yeah, I think that was an amazing conclusion of about our conversation today. And I've actually gotten to this point where I've had so many experiences here, even though it's been only 5 months. I'm living my life out to the fullest. That's what I've learned from the Japanese people. And unless somebody asks me something in particular, I will not remember it. So I hang out on Twitter a lot. If you wanna chat with me, just find me on Twitter,
Yeah.
X.
Where can they find you? What is your handle on X?
Nandini ___ Baga.
Okay. And we can include a link in
Add
the
it, yeah.
description as well so you can learn more from Nandini.
I have had experience here staying in three different wards here in
Mm.
Tokyo. So
Mm.
I come from that experience about Tokyo. So it's just not by living in one city. I am
Uh,
so grateful that I got to experience three different wards because
mm.
it's so hard to even find one place within one ward in
Yeah.
Tokyo. People
Mm.
really struggle to find a place within 24 wards of Tokyo.
Mm.
So
Mm.
that's where my experience has been from.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you didn't have too many issues like finding places to live, or was that a bit of a stumbling block? Because it can be for some people, right?
Yeah, it can be. I was warned that it'll be very difficult, but I just found a really good real estate agent on Twitter. So we just communicated on WhatsApp and I found this apartment
Wow,
within
that's great.
months. 3 months, no, 3 weeks, 3 weeks.
3 weeks. Wow.
Yeah.
So you found, yeah. So that's a good tip. Whether Twitter or wherever you can kind of find a real estate agent, um, and just have them do the work for you and find places that are open to renting to foreigners. Because not 100% of them are, sadly, but there are enough within Tokyo, especially where like people are a lot more used to foreigners and stuff. So you will be able to find something. But yeah, thank you so much for the discussion. I guess anyone who's watching this, if you got value from this, if you want to learn more, see more people like Nandini who've moved to Japan and worked as software engineers, see some more paths and success stories that can help you figure out how you want to do it, then do like the video, definitely subscribe because we're planning to do more of these types of interviews, and you know, leave a comment as well. I promise you, I will check it out. Um, and I would love to hear from you guys. So please engage, subscribe, especially if you are interested in learning more.